Hello guys, welcome back. I hope you're all doing great. So in today's video, I want to talk about a discontinued fragrance from the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur. It's a fragrance that's been on my wish list for quite a while, even though I never got my nose on the fragrance. Yes, it was a blind buy, and yes, the fragrance was on my wish list and I never smelled the fragrance. And if you saw the thumbnail, you know that the fragrance is Tea for Two, which is a fragrance that was released in 2000, and the perfumer behind the fragrance is Olivia Jacobetti. And based on the reviews and based on what I've read about Tea for Two, and also based on my own experience, if you guys watch my channel, I've mentioned that my perfume journey started with certain houses, including Serge Lutens, including Annick Goutal, and definitely including L'Artisan Parfumeur. I never purchased the fragrances that I am now trying to get in my collection. I've only recently gotten my nose on Zanka, which I made a video about, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But that wasn't necessarily on my radar in those years that I was interested in the house and I was purchasing fragrances from L'Artisan Parfumeur. I was purchasing different kinds of fragrances. And so Tea for Two was never really on my radar until more recently. And so I put it on my wish list, and the prices can be extraordinarily high and almost ridiculous. And so I refused to do that, but I have kept my eye out for certain fragrances that are discontinued or fragrances with older formulations that I'm looking to get in my collection. And so I'm patient, and I look and I look and I look, and I found it not once, but twice. Yes, I have 2 bottles of Tea for Two. They're both partials. This one has more juice than this one. They're both 100 ml. This one has the crown cap. I'm calling it a crown, the rounded cap, and it is older packaging than this one. And then the fragrances from this style bottle went into the packaging that we have now, which is the same shape as this, but it's the dark black, smoky gray with the black cap bottle. I recently purchased Zanka in the new bottle, in the new formulation, and I was impressed because I thought the cap was going to be plastic for some reason, but it was a heavyweight cap, and so I would say that it's the same quality, it's just different color. And there is something much, much nicer about this packaging. I really don't like the aesthetics of the dark gray or black or whatever color it is. I just don't like the aesthetics, it's just not as attractive. And there's something much more charming about these bottles. So I wish that they would go back to the clear bottles. But here's Tea for Two. They're both 100 ml, even though the one in my left hand is shorter than the one in my right hand. And I did do a side-by-side, and I don't smell any differences between the two. I do know that Tea for Two did make it from this packaging to the dark bottles, and then it was discontinued. So I'm not sure what it smelled like in the dark, more current packaging. I have no idea, but ultimately the fragrance was discontinued. I'm not sure why. I think it's a beautiful fragrance. So at the end, it was a successful double blind buy because both of these came in the same week, just this past week. And don't ask why I have 2 bottles. One was an amazing price, and then this one was an auction, and I put a bid in at the end and I won. And so the price of both together, when you consider the prices of some of the perfumes that are being released these days, they're very expensive. So for both bottles, I didn't even pay what you pay for some of the perfumes that are out there. So let's spray Tea for Two and talk about what it smells like. And I'm going to tell you what else I purchased from the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur. I think this smells beautiful, and this was actually a risky purchase for me because I'm not a big fan of tea fragrances. Tea can be smoky, tea can be earthy, and it can go in a dark direction. It can be a little bitter to taste in terms of drinking tea. So even though I drink a lot of tea, I like drinking green tea, very mild, especially the green tea with the toasted brown rice. It's a very mild, earthy flavor and taste. I love drinking that. I am not a big black tea drinker or Earl Grey teas. They're too bitter. And in fragrance, I feel like my sense of taste translates to my taste in fragrance. So in fragrance, I'm not a fan of tea that's dark in a fragrance. So I only have a few tea fragrances. I have Winter Palace by Memo Paris, which is a little too sweet for me, but nonetheless, I still have it in my collection. And then I have Masque Milano's Russian tea. And the tea in there is a little bit dark. So I only have a travel size and I hardly reach for it. I'm not getting that uber dark quality in here. Even though the tea in here is a Chinese black tea, it's balanced just right with all the other notes in here. And I'm getting this beautiful overall fragrance that is a tea fragrance, but it's complemented so beautifully with all the other notes. So I get hints of so many different things in here. I get hints of the orange blossom. It's just a slight hint of something a little floral. And I get a little bit of honey, and there is honey in the note listing. I definitely pick up on a little bit of honey. You have freshness as well. So the fragrance opens as a tea that is spiced. There's definitely something a little bit smoky. Naturally, it comes along with the tea. And I get spicy components in here. With the spicy components, I get, like I said, the orange blossom, just a hint. I get just a hint of honey. I get just a hint of freshness from the ginger, but it's not too zingy. It's just right to complement that tea. And as the fragrance dries down, I've worn this a few times, then it starts to become smooth, creamy, and a little bit sweetened, but I feel like the sweetness feels very, very natural. It smells really, really cozy, and as it's developing on skin, I'm getting hints of cinnamon, and in the backdrop, you have some woody notes in here as well. But there's something very cozy and creamy about it. It seems as though someone took a cup of tea and put a good dose of milk. Not sugar, but a nice dose of milk, so that the tea is sort of a little bit muted. That bitterness, the darkness, the smokiness is a little bit muted with this milk, so it feels almost a little bit lactonic. And I don't think there's anything lactonic in the notes. So at the top, there's star anise, gentian, bergamot, and orange blossom. Then there's lapsang souchong tea. There's cinnamon and there's ginger. And then you have tobacco, you have honey, you have gaiac wood, and you have some vanilla. So gentian is a plant that grows in the mountains in Europe. I did a little bit of research on this because I had no idea what it was. It's known as bitter root, and it's used in cocktails as a bitter addition to a cocktail. And it can have qualities that are a little bit earthy. It can have qualities that are a little bit floral, and it could be a little bit bitter as well. So I'm going to guess that it's complementing the tea because the tea is a black tea in here. But like I said, as the fragrance dries down, maybe it's the vanilla that comes in. The quality is very cozy and creamy. To my nose, in my mind, I'm picturing a tea that has milk, and so there's something a little bit lactonic and cozy about this. And I'm getting that freshness that comes through. Even though the tea is a black tea, I'm getting the hints of freshness. It's probably coming from the ginger, but to my nose, if I didn't know what the note listing was, I would think that it was some lemon squirted into the tea, which people do. I don't do it, but people do it. So there's a freshness, there's a spiciness, there's a coziness. It's a little bit woody, it's aromatic, it's warm. It's cozy. It's a very cozy fragrance. I think this is a great addition to my fall fragrance wardrobe. So I think I'm going to enjoy this one and this bottle as well. Like I said, I did a side-by-side. I didn't really notice any differences. They both smell the same. They're both beautiful. And why they discontinued this, I'm not sure. But what I also wanted to mention is that I found a bottle of Zanka in the old packaging. So I did speak about this one in a recent video. I did purchase the Zanka in today's packaging, in the current packaging, in the current formulation. I do believe that Zanka, like Timbuktu, has been reformulated. I really enjoy this one in the current formulation. And when I found this, I was more than happy to add it to my collection. I'm not sure the difference between the two. I would really have to do a side by side, but I will say that whether I spray from this bottle or from this bottle, this fragrance is very long lasting. The sillage is amazing. It's a fragrance that when I spray in the morning, I am enjoying for the entirety of the day, and I'm getting wafts off my skin, and it always reminds me that it's there. And so I really, really love wearing this. And I've worn it from the current formulation, and it performs the same way. But like I said, I found it in the older packaging. I'm going to call it the older formulation, and I'm really, really happy. I love this fragrance. So Zanka was released in 2006, so 6 years after Tea for Two. And Bertrand Duchefort is the perfumer behind this fragrance and Timbuktu. People compare the two. I have a very small 10 ml travel size of Timbuktu. I'm not sure how similar. I can see something a little bit similar about the two, but at the end of the day, they are quite different. So I find Zanka a little bit difficult to describe. I would describe it as a fragrance. I'm going to go ahead and spray it. I had this on yesterday. I'm going to describe it as a fragrance that opens up slightly floral and a little bit incensey. I get the incense straight away, and I get soft, beautiful florals. Very, very soft, very powdery. I find it very dry right from the opening. And then you have some woody components, and you have a little bit of spice. There's cardamom in here. And you also have vetiver that I can sort of pick up, but it's not a very big part of the fragrance. The fragrance also has a note of leather, but I don't really get anything leathery in here. What I do get at the end of the day as this dries down, I feel like it's a combination of the iris. I think the iris is a big player in here, as are the woody components, but I think the iris is huge, and the masala chai. So I think it's this masala chai iris combination that I am absolutely loving about the fragrance. So the masala chai is warm, it's creamy, it's a little bit sweet. So there is a creamy sweetness about the fragrance. There is absolutely something powdery about the fragrance, and I think that's what I really like. And there are woody components that are the backdrop to this beautiful combination of sweet and creamy and warmth. The chai, the masala chai, is really warm, and so it's a cozy fragrance like Tea for Two. I think this one is also really, really cozy. I really like the way it smells. And even though I've heard this described as being a little bit smoky and even a little bit leathery, like I said, I'm just not getting that. Maybe there's a texture to the fragrance, but I feel like what's most prominent is this iris. So there's cardamom, there's lychee blossom and peony at the top. So that accounts for that soft opening, that soft floral opening. And then you have vetiver, you have the masala chai, the Somalian frankincense. I do get the frankincense that runs through the fragrance. And then you have papyrus, leather, and iris. So like I said, I'm not really getting a big leathery component. I feel like the masala chai and the iris are a big part of the fragrance. In the opening, maybe you have more of the spice with the cardamom. I feel like I sense something dry in the fragrance. I feel like the woody components also play a major role, but it's the powderiness of the iris, and the vanilla does sweeten things up, but it's a warm fragrance. It's a cozy fragrance. I feel like this one also has something a little bit lactonic, tea-like about it, but sweetened and aromatic spice as well. So it's different from the black tea that's a little bit more smoky and maybe a little bit more on the bitter side of things with Tea for Two. This one I think is sweeter, maybe a little bit more aromatic and not bitter whatsoever. So this is really smooth. It's a very, very smooth fragrance. I think it's a stunning fragrance. I love this. And I think this one, like Tea for Two, is a nice fragrance for the fall. So I think both great addition to the fall perfume wardrobe. I'm looking forward to wearing these. And I'd like to know in the comments if you guys are familiar with Zanka or Tea for Two, or even the Zanka in the current packaging. As always, thank you so much for watching, your support, and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.